Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do another orchid. I know I've done quite a few, but I've got some orchids in flower at the moment that I thought I would do while they're in flower. And the orchid that I'm going to do is called Miltoniopsis. I actually have three colours in them. Unfortunately only two of them are in flower at the moment. So I'm going to show you two of the colours that are in flower at the moment, and then now this is one. This one I've had a while. It's flowered every year for the last 2 or 3 years, and then I've just bought a new one, which is this one. This is the one I'm actually going to do, which is the white version. If I bring it further back, then you can see. Now it may look a bit familiar, the shape of this, and that is because I can hear you, what mine's ticking over, so just come up with a name. The pansy orchid. So I'm going to do the white one because it's easier to do the detail on that. I mean, if I had more time I could do one of the other colours. I've also got one called Sunset, which is, if you imagine the white one with yellow petals and then a pink centre, that's that one. Apparently it's a bit more a rarer orchid than the other colours. So according to an orchid expert that I saw at a flower show the other week, when I told her about that. So anyway, I'm going to take you down to my board now. Now for the wide petals you could actually use a pansy cutter, but you need one that's as big as this. I'm using lily cutters for this, out of the smallest size set, depending on which make you get. But I mean, the makes that I get, they come in 3 different sizes: small, medium, and then the full size one. And for the large petal at the front, I'm actually using a ginkgo leaf cutter for that, because the shape is something near to what I want. So the only paste that I'm going to use for this is white paste. I'm going to start off by putting some white fat on my board. Now the centre for the flower, if I bring this orchid back over again and show you that, if I put it under the lights like that, you can see it there in the centre is really tiny. So you need to get that really small. So if I start off with that one, and what I'm doing is I'm using some 26 gauge wires for this. Get my scissors out. I have got some wires cut, so I'm just going to get one wire out. And I'm going to cut these into quarters. You don't need long wires for this. And I'm using the same size wire for all the different parts of the flower as well. Ooh, my orchid's just fallen over again. I'm just going to pop this down on the floor. Oh, out of the way, and it doesn't fall over again. I don't want to knock flowers off just yet. The best thing about orchids is, as far as flowers are concerned, it's actually cheaper than buying a bunch of flowers, because the flowers last for so long, which is a really good thing. Now I've got a 26 gauge wire there. So I'm just going to get some white paste out. I'm only working with white paste for this. Just get a small amount out for now. I need a tiny little bit. And when I say tiny, I mean tiny. Because it is a very small centre. It is a bit fiddly to do. Any of you ladies that are watching with smaller fingers than me probably will find it a bit easier to do this. I'm not going to put all the detail in that I normally put into the centre of an orchid, for the simple reason that you're not going to see it anyway, because it's right down in the flower, and the main part of the flower is the showy part. So into a cone, onto your wire, and then roll it between your first 2 fingers, just the same as you would with the centre for any other orchid. Most orchids all have the same things. They all have a column, they all have a large petal, and then 5 of the other petals too wide and too narrow. It's just the shapes of them and the size of them and the form for those particular orchids is how it works. I'm just going to take a little bit of that off because that's a little bit long. Let's roll that back onto there. Right, so onto my hand now, and I'm going to use my smallest ball tool, and I'm going to use the small end of that and just push into the wide bit at the top like that. I don't know whether you can see that. I'll put it against my hand. Right, and then very carefully I'm just going to get in and pinch the sides out a little bit. Like I've done with the other orchids. That's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to do the eye bit on the top because you can't see it anywhere. And just go back in again with the ball tool and then just bring that back in again. So I've got that sort of shape with my orchid. And put that to one side to dry. I've already got one here that I've got dried. So the next part I'm going to do is the large lip petal, I'm going to call it. So I'm going to start off by rolling my paste out. You need to make sure you get it wide enough to get the cutter onto it, so make sure you've got it big enough. And then what I'm going to do then is, with the cell stick, I'm going to start from the centre, and this is the old-fashioned way of doing a groove. Before we had groove boards and things like that, but for this flower I need it because I need that little bit extra at the top there. So either side I'm going to make a ridge. I don't know whether they still call it this or not, but when I first started, this was called a sleeping policeman. You know, like you've got in the roads to slow traffic down. So that's basically what we're aiming for there. And then I'm going to leave a bit of the thick at the top there, just for the wire to go into it, and then roll down from there, that way. So you've got your thick piece in the centre. Then if you put your cutter on it, making sure that that thick piece goes up the centre, cut out your petal. I'm just going to use a Dresden tool just to take that piece out. When you've got small sort of pieces like this, sometimes they're a little bit difficult to get out without tearing your paste, so you need to get in with something sharp to get that out. Pick something up there off somewhere, I don't know what that is. Right, so I'll just get rid of that paste for the minute. Right, so we've got to that stage. So the next thing I'm going to do is to put my wire up the thick part of the sleeping policeman, up the centre there. So I've gone up to about there with the wire. So next I'm going to, I've got another orchid on there on my pad, just bear with me a second. Get my pad. Now we're not going to bother about thinning the edges around the top part, it's just the bottom part. So I'll need my medium ball tool, and I'm just going to thin the bottom part there. You can go up the centre part there if you want and just open that out a little bit. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the silk veining tool, starting from the centre and work outwards like this in a fan motion, going in the shape of the petal that way and then that way. Get that off, and then I'm going to go back to the end and I'm going to start going round the edge again, going in the direction of your veining with the point up in the air, and just roll the edges to give it a bit of a frill. Although the petals are reasonably flat, if you do that in sugar they just look dead. They don't look alive at all. And then round the other side. So we've got to that stage. I'm going to put it on my hand to do this because we're using white paste. It doesn't show up on my pad. So the next thing I'm going to do is now I need to find my tweezers. Where are they? There they are, under there. And first of all, hang on, I'm going to do something else before I get onto that. A little bit that I've forgotten. Again, I need a tiny little paste. I don't know whether you've noticed on the flowers or not. I think I can show you on the ready coloured orchid. If I get that down here, if you look there at the top, just either side of the column, there's like a little point comes up. So the way that I'm going to do this is, I've tried a couple of ways of doing it, but I found the easiest way to do it was to roll a tiny piece of paste That's too big. I need about half of that. So I'll just get my cutting wheel and cut that in half. Take half of that off. Roll it again. Whoops. I need to roll it a bit thinner on each end so it almost goes to a point. I mean, if you can get hold of a veiner, I don't know whether there is one for this, I've never seen one, but that probably would make it easy. You probably get all that detail in. Then I'm going to fold it in half like that, and then I'm going to put that at the top here. So I've got these two little points coming up here. Then I'm going to go in with my tweezers, and then on one side I'm going to do a ridge, and on the other side I'm going to do a ridge. That's just come a bit loose, and then the reason I've put that in there is so I can go in with my tweezers and do another ridge up the centre, and that'll attach that little piece there. So we've got these three ridges coming up the centre. So the next thing to do then is to pop that into your foam to give it a bit of shape like that. Okay, and then leave that to dry. Right, don't like the look of that. I've picked something up with that. Must have had some colour on my board that I've missed. So I'm going to get some more paste out now. Getting a bit firm this because it's been made quite a while as this. I probably mentioned it before, but anybody that hasn't been watching before, if you're getting any little crusty bits on the outside of your flower paste, don't throw it away. It happens to the best of us, even if you're being really careful with it. What I do is, if I've got any crusty little bits like I have there, you get it onto your board and then get your rolling pin and then just roll it out and crush those bits there like that, and then just knead it back into your paste. There's a little bit there. I'm just going to roll out, and your paste comes back to how it was in the first place when it was nice and smooth. Because otherwise you get dry bits in your petals and leaves and things like that, and it doesn't look very nice. It generally means you have to do it all over again. So if you just check your paste before you start, if it's been made a while or if the air's got to it or whatever. Right, so I'm going to start off by rolling your paste out. Don't go too thin with it. And if you're like me and you've got one of my one of these groove rolling pins, they come in really handy for these sort of jobs, because you don't have to roll them out individually then on the other side of your board. There we are. Right, so I want 2 of the wide petals. And then I want 3 of the narrow ones. Make sure your groove goes up the centre. If you're using the groove side of your board, don't try and cut it out with it still on the groove. Take the paste off, turn it over so you can see where your ridge is. That way you make sure you get them on the centre. I know when I first got one I used to do that, and I used to always end up off centre, so then I found that it was a lot easier if you turn your paste over when you've rolled it out. So we'll just put that back into my bag. And then you can put your wires into your paste then. So again, twist it in so that the stem text doesn't come off your wire. I haven't counted my wires properly. I didn't take into account the centre, so I'm 1 wire short. That's what's called paying attention, and I'm not paying attention to myself to do that. So that doesn't matter for this part of the video, because I'm not going to use these petals anyway. I can come back and do that later after I've done the video. Now generally the minimum you get of these orchids on the stem is about 3, and the maximum can be 5, but you can get 2, 3, 4 and 5. The red one has got 5 on the stem. The white one has got 4 on one stem and 3 on the other, and there's another new shoot coming that's only got 2 on it. So there's no hard and fast rule as to how many orchids you put on a stem. I'll get another wire out while I'm doing this. Might as well do it while I think about it, otherwise I'll forget. Then I've got them all done, haven't I? While I'm doing this, people, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I need a lot more subscribers, and don't forget to leave comments and any suggestions about anything you'd like to see me do. I've got a couple of people that started giving me suggestions, so thank you to those people. One of the videos I've already done, the ranunculus, and I've another request that I've got to do, but I'd already decided I was doing this one, so I will get on to that. So thin your edges of your petals. I always do it with the ridge upwards. It's just a habit of mine. There's no hard and fast rule that says you've got to do it that way. Just that if there's any ridge, it's going to be on the back of your petal if you've got your paste too thick. Right, so that's those done. So then I go back onto my hand, and then with your silk veining tool, there it is, again in a fan motion, roll out from one side to the other side, like that. Doesn't matter if you stretch the petals a bit on all of them really, because the petals are a bit wider than normal. If you wanted to make a really wide one, you could use the wide petal from this lily, and then, like I say, a rose petal if you wanted to. But I'd already done it this way, so I'm sticking to that. But it depends on what you've got in your box. I mean, quite often, sometimes, especially if you haven't got a lot of equipment and you're just starting, you've got to utilise what you've got in your box rather than going out and buying loads of different cutters for different things. If you were doing a competition, that's different. Then everything's got to be botanically correct. But if you're doing it as a hobby, or if you're doing cakes for somebody and you haven't got the right cutters, then just look in your box and see what you've got that you can use, because some of the cutters are the same, more or less the same shapes anyway, so it's just finding the best. Right, so the next thing that I'm going to do then is I'm going to go up the centre like that, and then I'm going to let the top part of the petals curve back a little bit, just to get some movement in it, and then onto your foam. So I put that in there like that. Just get hold of my other petals, pop that down there while I do this. So up the centre. Sorry, I'm going off camera again, don't shout at me. And then curve that back a bit, and then into your foam. And then the same with the narrow ones as well. So up your petals and curve that back a bit. Into there. Right, so they can go to one side to dry. As you can see, I've already got some here that I've done. Right, so next step is colouring. I'm not doing any leaves with these because, as you probably noticed when I showed you the plant, they've got very long leaves that come from a pseudobulb at the bottom, and then the stem comes up with just the flowers on. There aren't any leaves on the stem itself. So if you're going to do this for a spray on a cake, you might want to do some other kinds of leaves to go in with your flowers. So we'll get on to the colouring, and if I just move a few of these things out and put them away, because I'm not using those now. I've got some brushes out here that I've already used for doing whichever job that I'm doing. I'm just going to put one of those flowers that I've already done in there so I can see what I've done on it, and get my petals down. They've all dried slightly differently. So these three here, the narrow ones, we're not going to do anything with at all. We're going to leave those white. They stay white. The colouring is on the two wider petals and the lip on your orchid. So which colour did I use now for that? There it is. I use claret for this. I'll show you one that I've already done, and then you can see how I've coloured it. There, you can see that. So just pop that away. Now you need to use a sort of fairly small brush for this. If I can find where I've put it. I think that's the one. Oops. Makes a change not to have to use any glue as well for a change, because there's nothing to glue on this really. Depends how sticky your paste is. If you're when you put that little thin piece on, you might want to put some glue on, depending on what your paste is like. If it's sticky, you won't need it. Right, so if you start from the base and just start to bring it up the centre like that. I've got too much loose dust on there. And then bring it out in a fan and then up the centre a little bit further. And then you can go back in at the base and then just make it a bit deeper by adding more paste powder to it to make it a bit darker, and then fade it out to light. You don't go quite as far up with it. That's one. Might need a little bit more powder. Yeah, better. Right, so that's those two petals done. So we'll go on to the throat petal now. So what I've done with this one, if I bring the one that I've already coloured, I've done some yellow in the centre, and that includes those little peaks that come up. So I've got a brush here. I'm using a fairly thin brush for this, and the colour that I've used for this is Sunflower from Edible Art. Anything that looks like a sort of an eggy colour, and that the deep yellow is what you want for this job. So onto your paper. Make sure you get loose dust off, because it goes where you don't want it to go. And then dust up like that, and then bring that round in a fan shape. I'm just going to dust those little pieces there. There we are, so we've got to that point. Then I'm going to come back to the burgundy again, and this time I'm going to use a fine sable brush for this. So I'm going to turn this round so that it's towards me now. Now this is the part that I always have difficulty with, because I'm not good at painting. You know, we can't all be good at everything. So I need a little bit of isopropyl. I think I've just got a little drop left in there, and I'm going to mix that in with my colour there, and then you've got sort of lines that come up the centre, fine lines like that, and like that. And then I always take the colour off my brush as well before I do this, because they're very fine, and then these sort of like little lines come in all the way around, like the rays off the sun. So there we are, that's your colouring on there. So once you've done that, there's no colour on the column in the centre, that's white as well, so there's not a lot of colouring to do on this particular orchid if you're doing this one. If you're doing the deeper colour, then yes, there is a lot more, but I would still do that in white because the petals have a very thin line of white around the edge. It's not a tidy edge, but you'd start bring your colour out to the nearly to the edge, but fading it out. And in the centre where it's yellow on that one, that is a lighter shade of the red, but then leaving a sort of like a halo of white round there, and then some lines in the same colour coming out in it as well. It's a little bit more complicated. If I bring it back to you and show you, if you go online, you can look up these orchids anyway, and you can find pictures. There's plenty of photography sites online that have pictures of practically everything that you want. So if you're doing a flower and you haven't got the real one, or you don't have access to it, then go on there and have a look. Right, so I'm going to put this together now with some light green tape. So just get some tape out. Then get my little cutting machine. I'm going to bring my camera up a little bit now, because at this point this is where I tend to go out of shot when I'm doing things, and I apologise every time, but when you're cameraman and demonstrator, it's very difficult to keep an eye on the camera as well as what you're doing. I know I say it every time, but it's true. Right, so cut the tape. So I've got some half width tape here. Let's put that over there. So I'm going to get the dried column and start the tape off on that. So if you stretch the end to release your glue, it keeps snapping off. Which side? This roll's not very sticky, I'm afraid. Not as sticky as it should be. There we are. Push that up to the base of the column like that, and then if you get your lip part of your flower and bend your wire down and then tape that in. It may not stay in place at this point, but the main thing at the moment is getting it taped in, and it's turning round already. You can adjust that once you've got everything together. Just need to go around like that just to get that going. There we are. Then you can pull everything down so that everything is well in, and make sure you turn that round like that, and then tape down. Now it's moved round again. Not behaving itself, but my tape's a little bit dry as well. Probably stay together better once I've got a few more pieces in. I just need to turn that round. There we are. So that's the throat in. So I'll start my tape off again, directly under there, like that. And then you, again, like we do with most of the orchids, put the narrow petals in first. Now it's up to you whether you start with the one in the middle or the ones on the side. I generally start with the ones on the side. Don't forget to bend your petals back. That's a bit more bent back than the others, so I'm going to use that one for the central petal. If you try and get your two side petals even, and if you've got one that's slightly more curved back than the others, then use that for your central one. That's those in. Bring that round. Let's pull those wires down. And then put in the third petal, or sepals, or whatever they're called. I can't remember from my training. And then I'm going to tape down all the way down again, because now I've got more wires in, it's a lot easier to twist your wires. The first two are a little bit difficult. When you get a group, you've got more control over them. So there we are, I've got to that stage. So again, I'm going to get my tape and start it off directly underneath those petals there, and then get the two wider petals, and then I slot those in between so they go inside. So the way that the flowers open, the wider petals are generally on the inside, like on lilies. I know I've mentioned this before because I did an orchid the other week. What did I do? Oh, Cataleya orchid. There are a few different ones on my channel that I've already done. Dendrobium, Cymbidium, Cataleya. Have I done anything else? I can't remember. I'm losing track of all because I've done that many videos now. There are a lot to see. If you like orchids, I have done quite a few. There are some that I haven't done because there's thousands of different orchids anyway. Oh, Phalaenopsis, that's it. Right, so I'm going to tape all the way down. I've pulled the wires down to make sure they're nice and tight in. So then you can adjust your petals around then. So it goes in between those two there. So there we are with that. So once I've done that, then I can tape them all together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get myself a 20 gauge wire. Have I got one here? That's not long enough. I'm going to use a green wire for this because it's not going to be seen anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use half a wire for this. Scissors there. I always tape them onto a stronger wire because if you're going to do an arrangement, you want them to stay put. So that's the best way of doing it. So I start the tape off right at the top of the wire, and then I'm going to put in the first orchid. And the way that they grow, they sort of bend outwards. So if you put a bit of a curve on your stem, I'll just tape this in first before I do that. Yeah, it wants to go out that way. So it's like it bends out and then comes up so that the orchid's flat. Go down a little bit further and then I'll put another orchid in to there. So that's going to bend out that way. I'm just going to come a little bit further down. Bring that a bit further out, I think. And put that one in there, like that. I'm just going to open my tape out. I've got a bit curved over here. So if I just go back up my... Because you can end up with an untidy stem if you don't do this, and I've managed to squash it round. There we are. That's neatened that up. I'm just going to go back over that where I've gone because I've got some gaps in it. Looks a lot better if it's neatly done. So if you bring that one out like that and then bend that up like that, and I'm going to come a bit further down, just straighten my tape up again. There we are. And then I'm going to put another one in here. I'm only doing 3 into this arrangement, so I'll put that a little bit further down. Make that stem a little bit shorter. That's around about the same length as the ones on the real flowers. Makes it so much easier if you've got the real flower in front of you to follow when you're doing things like this, because you can get your detail better if there's something there to copy. That's what I was told when I used to enter competitions at the Cake International. And then I'm just going to continue all the way down the stem now. You could make that a bit short. I mean, I could make this longer if I had more orchids to put in, and I could put another one in with those that I've already set on one side to dry later on. I could make this into a 4 arrangement. Right, take that off. So bring that out and bring that up. So there we are, a Miltonia orchid, or pansy orchid as it's commonly known. Now what I am going to do before I do this, I keep forgetting to do this when I'm doing my videos, is to show you how to steamy flowers. So I'm just going to pop that down there for a minute while I get my steamer. And somebody asked a question on one of the sites the other day about steaming and what you could use to steam with. This is actually a Sugarcraft steamer, but apparently there are clothes steamers that are very much like this. This is a PME one, which are cheaper. And PME are not the cheapest around. There are other things. As long as it doesn't spit, that's the main thing. If you haven't got a steamer, and you don't want to spend money on it, you can use your kettle. Just make sure there's not too much water in your kettle. The only problem is with modern kettles, as soon as they start boiling, they do cut off. So the advantage of steaming does 2 things. It gives you sort of like a waxy look to your flowers, and it also sets your colour as well, so it doesn't rub off. So my steamer's now steaming. So there we are. So if you just gently steam your flowers. Now there's no calyx on the back of most orchids, so you don't need to do a calyx on there. But you can steam the back just to get that waxy look on the back. And if you've got any icing sugar or anything on the back, it melts it as well. So there we are. That's my Miltoniopsis Orchid. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that in this block here so that you can see that. If I move that a bit further back that way. So I hope you've enjoyed that that video, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you've got any suggestions or any comments or anything like that, leave them below underneath the video. And take care and come back soon. See you soon.